Several new tools have been added to snowFlaKe version 3 for randomizing ecosystem materials. These node groups are the Deforestation MetaNode, the Instance Seeds, and the Ecomaterial Variance metanodes. The first tool I want to show you is the Deforestation Tool. It's been designed for really one purpose, which is to remove leaves from any vegetation. So what I want to do is just have this scene open with just a regular terrain and a grass material on it. I'm going to go ahead and edit the material of the terrain and add in selecting ecosystem for the material type to add to the ecosystem layer, and I'm going to add in a plant. From the Trees menu, I'm going to go ahead and select the alder late spring and click OK to add that to our ecosystem population list. And go ahead and populate it just to take a look at the spacing and the scale. And if we take a look in the world browser and select materials, we'll be able to see the ecosystem material. There are 3 different material setups for the trunk and the branches, and then we have 2 different materials for the leaves. So what we're going to do is add this node to both of the leaves and the leaf materials. We can just close out the ecosystem for now, or the material for the terrain. Double-click to open up Leaf Tree Natural, which is the first of the 2 materials. They are spread pretty much evenly throughout the plant species. If we right-click and edit the function within any of the available previews for the function editor, or extracting any of the different settings, right-click, edit the function. We can open up the material editor. And if you've used the content installation method for installing snowFlaKe, you can access this node by right-clicking and going to the combiner nodes, MetaNodes, and selecting deforestation. This is a pretty basic tool because it was meant to be simplistic and not have too many things going on in the inside to slow anything down. So it's a nice and quick setup. A couple of different options to vary the distribution of the subtraction. So what I want to do is select the texture map with the top input of the deforestation node, which is a color input. Now the output is going to be numeric, but the color information being passed through will still work as a numeric value, so you don't need to worry about connecting to the grayscale. And then all we have to do is connect the transparency output to the deforestation node. Now what it's doing is it's going to replace with white, which is going to be 100% transparent, within different areas throughout the ecosystem. So this is only going to work within an ecosystem material. So this is a render with just that material on at the moment. You can't really see a huge change because there's still that other leaf material on the vegetation. So what we're going to do is click OK, and then we're going to close out this first material and we're going to go into the second. We can right click at the material, or you can double click and just do the same thing as we did before. Going to the combiner node, right click, combiner, MetaNode, deforestation, and connect that to our transparency map and the transparency output to the deforestation node. And now here's a render with that second material added, or the deforestation node added to that transparency, and you can see a huge difference. So there's a nice subtraction of the different leaves throughout the ecosystem. If we take a look at some of the controls, what we have is a variation scale. The regions that are being evaluated in order to remove the leaves. The switch level will basically change the density of the overall subtraction, and then the invert tick box that's there will just reverse which trees have the subtraction and which ones don't. The replacement can be extracted to other texture maps if needed. This is really meant for more of a complete subtraction, because if you want to start varying different textures and different texture groups, that's what the eco-material variance set of metanodes are for. So we could change the variation scale a little, go ahead and invert, and take a look. So having the invert and different scale on the other material is going to mix the subtraction within the trees a little bit better, so that way you still have a few leaves on some of the trees if you want. So there's a couple tools there, just modifying the sliders separately. You can create something that looks nice and varied and a little more realistic, and minimizing the amount of objects you have to use in order to create this sort of an effect. Now, all of the tools and the randomization materials included with snowFlaKe are Boolean operators. What that means is the texture is either one or the other. And if we just take a look, the way this is set up, we either have this texture showing or we have the replacement showing. So there's not going to be any in-between values whatsoever. You're either going to get one or the other. So that does make it easy to remove these errors and not have to worry about some of the issues you would run into if you were to do this with a fractal, where you'd have some areas of the trees being removed in kind of patches with floating leaves. So it is a Boolean operator. It will either show the material or it won't.